Mandible here. Okay, so that's the only bone actually that is movable. I'm gonna do the mandible. I forgot to do the mandible. So the mandible, guys, is the only bone that is movable in our skull. It's the only one. You cannot move any other bone in your skull, right? So pretty much is fixed. That's the only one that is movable. And it has the only one point of attachment, that is the mandibular fossa. So now I'm going to detach the mandible, so I'm going to give you the bone markings that you're going to identify on this mandible. So the first thing, you're going to see the body of the mandible. The body of the mandible is all this, the front part, like our chin, right? So that's the mandible. So now in the front of the mandible, you're going to find these holes right here. That's called the mental foramen. Remember, foramen means a hole, mental. Because actually in Latin and in Spanish, we call this menton. So it's called the mental, right? So nothing to do with mint, with flavor, nothing, right? So it's the mental foramen, right? So this is the mental foramen here. So then what we're gonna find here, the angle. So that will be the body. So this is the angle of the mandible, and this is the ramus, right? So this is called the ramus, the one that you can feel it right here. That's the ramus, the angle, and the body. This is the mental foramen. And then we have two processes here. So this process right here is called the coronoid process, right? And the one on the back is the condylar process, right? So that's the condylar process here. And the condylar process is the only one that is attached to the mandibular fossa, right? So it's the only one attached here. This has some other functions. So because actually coronoid process and condylar process make this little notch that, as you can see right there, is called the submandibular notch, right? So right there is a place for muscles, ligaments to pass, so through that. But actually this is the only place that is attached. So okay, we have the condylar process, coronoid process, the ramus, angle, body, mental foramen. And then we have another foramen on the back, right here on the back of the mandible, that is called the mandibular foramen, right? So mandibular foramen, mental foramen, mandibular foramen, right here, right? So then, and again, so we will have fossa that will hold all the teeth, and the fossal process or the foveal process right here, all the little wavy thing in the mandible, right? So, and that's the bone markings from the mandible. And yes, I do believe with that we identify pretty much all the bones here.